Hello, everyone. My name is Sergiy, and today we'll talk about reproducible science in HPC, and in general, and in particular, about preparing reproducible software environments and benchmark with Ansible and Spack. The problem of reproducibility is not new in the science. In different branches of science, we have different approaches to reproducibility, and HPC is not an exception. Well, let's take a look on the evolution of the view on the reproducibility in HPC. At first, scientists HPC experts were satisfied by reporting of experimental setup sections in the HPC papers, but that was valid until 2009, when Mitkovic published his milestone paper, where he claimed that and introduced the concept of measurement bias. And he claimed that measurement bias is significant, commonplace, and unpredictable. With respect to HPC, there are two very interesting points which were raised by Mitkovic and which definitely changed the view on reproducible science in HPC later on. The first one is that program performance is sensitive to experimental setup. And the experiments proposed by Mitkovic, he has experimented a little with different things which theoretically shouldn't impact the performance much, such as changing the environment variables before running the program, and as well as changing the linkage order of the objective files before running the executable. And he was able, by these small changes, he was able to show that the program performance can change dramatically with these quite small changes. And if you want to make your reports reproducible, you should take care of many aspects, which are not easy to take care of. In order to address this issue, HPC community developed several concepts for and conventions for reproducible experiments. One of them was proposed by Jimenez and others in 2017 and published in the paper under the name Popper Convention. Another interesting point raised by Mitkovic is that in order to detect, we can get rid of this sensitivity, and in order to make it, we should use the statistics. Basically, he claimed that modern statistics methods brought from different sciences, such as social sciences and other statistically involved sciences, that these statistical methods can help to detect and avoid bias. And basically, this aspect was also addressed by HPC community and taken into consideration by HPC community. And basically, what HPC community tried to do, they tried to carefully report the results in terms of statistics. And one of the remarkable papers that describes how to make it was published in 2015 by Hofner and Pelly. So, but in this particular talk, I will concentrate on the first point, basically on the conventions, how to make reproducible experiments. Well, and next interesting thing is that from our personal experience, in last year, we had a review taken by European Commission, and in the report, in the response of this review, European Commission mentioned several things related to reproducibility in science. In particular, they mentioned that in our investigation, we should take care about reproducible benchmarking. We should make our experiments reproducible in line with open science and open data standards. And basically, all of that is closely related to the points mentioned by Mitkovic and addressed later on by HPC community. So let's go to this aspect, conventions for the reproducible experiments. And in this particular, one of the first papers discussing this issue was the paper of Jimenez, as mentioned before. Jimenez proposed Popper Convention. In this convention, he basically said that verbal instruction are not safe and not rigorous, and basically not sufficient anymore for reporting our experiments. We should do more. In particular, we should provide a set of precise configs and scripts that describe available packages and default preferences, how to deploy the software, how to produce the plots, and so on. And also, the scripts should be accompanied with report metadata. If we will take a look on the workflow of the reproducible experiment proposed within as a part of Popper Convention, we will see that Spack and both Spack and Ansible are part of this workflow, essential part. So, and both these tools actually were introduced to this workflow just to prepare reproducible software environments. So let's go back to the problem of reproducibility of software environments and take a look how this problem is solved in, for example, in data science, where people usually quite often use Python as a baseline tool for their experiments. And in order to report their experiments with Python, they can do the following steps, quite simple steps. First of all, they have to prepare the list of required packages with some constraint for the versions of these packages. And then they can install all these packages with PyPI install instruction. If they want to report the installed software, they can use PyPI freeze command and store the output of this command in the requirements.txt file. So pretty simple, but is it sufficient for performance engineering? Not actually not, because in this particular case, we miss many details which are relevant for study of the performance. For example, if we define NumPy package, we miss the information of what is the backend linear algebra software for this package. If we define MPI for Py, we also miss the information about the backend MPI implementation. So we need to know more. Well, if we do data science experiments, we just care about reproducing the results. We don't care about performance much, but in HPC research, we actually care about performance. And in this case, we need to report all that data, all that information. So what about reproducible general software environments in the on the resources of several HPC centers at once? Well, it sounds like a little bit harder than with PyPI, like a little, except a lot. In the HPC research, people often have to install their software from sources. And this work requires a lot of knowledge. People should try different options to tune their software to the hardware, try different approaches, and so on. And that requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of different aspects taken into account. Some of them are listed in these slides. For example, all of you probably know about it since you are joined this talk, but actually let me remind some of them. The first is management of dependencies. So people should take care when they install software from sources. People should take care about versions of the software which your particular package depends on. Then they have to take care about many site and system specific details, such as diversity of build systems and compilers, diversity of recommended setups for different systems and sites, different stacks of pre-installed native software and so on. Then they have to take care about installing their software offline on offline sites. It's also sometimes quite an issue when you do not have access to the internet from your particular system, and you should take care of preparing some mirrors. Then there is an issue of combinatorial versioning. Basically, in HPC research, we always want to install some packages with different versions in order to do benchmarks with different tunings, with different compilers, and so on. So, and the last but not least, sometimes we face problems with porting our codes to particular systems, and that requires some extra work, like preparing patches and so on. So quite much for a basic user. So and therefore the typical life cycle of the HPC system user looks like this. At first, he tries different options. Sometimes blindly, he reads manuals, tries to apply different approaches from the manuals to install the software. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes he faces very crucial issues and he have to contact support. And again, even support does not always help. Well, all I want to say is that manual installation of the software on HPC environments is extremely time-consuming, error-prone, and tedious process, which requires quite much of knowledge. So can we reduce the troubles? And apparently, since we have this talk, the answer is yes. And we can do it in particular with Spack package manager. So why do we actually want to use Spack in the first place? This question was raised in the Hidalgo project when I first was asked to introduce Spack to the community. And actually, the answer is pretty simple. Spack has many advantages over other package managers. It allows to deal with offline installation on bare metal. It allows to make build customization. It allows to reproduce some software environments. It allows to use as exact reproduction of environments with log files, and as well as define some manifest for general definition of the environments without specific details. It also allows us to define installation matrices for benchmarking with different options and different compilers. It allows us to grant, it also grants us some features, some extra features, which other packages usually do not, such as containerization of environments, GitLab CI pipelines, and documentation of the installation process as soon as we prepare packages for installation. So let's take a look of comparison. Let's take a look on the Spack and compare it with other package managers, such as binary package managers, RPM, Yum, and port systems such as Homebrew and so on. Well, basically, one of the main problems of such software is that they do not support combinatorial versioning, which is crucial for HPC. So in HPC, we usually have to make it possible to install software with different combination of options and compilers, as well as we also have to install it. As a result, we also have to install it to different prefixes, which is not always visible with this software. We'll take a look on the Python and on data science community. Actually, Spack is useful for them too, because the common solutions like PyPI or Poetry, as well as Conda, have another problems. In particular, in PyPI and Poetry, these software packages do not, these package managers for Python do not support non-Python dependencies. At least to some extent, people should make a lot of extra work to install these dependencies. With Conda, we face a different problem. We usually have optimized binaries, but optimized binaries for some specific architectures. And when we want to run our software on the specific supercomputers, these binaries not always optimized to the specific microarchitectures of these supercomputers. Well, actually, Spack solves these problems, but to be totally fair, Spack has some issues compared to PyPI and Conda. For example, Spack is not working well on Windows, unlike Conda, and Spack has much less packages inside than PyPI. So let's go further to the data scientist community. In data scientist community, we often need Java in general. And actually, what is good, Spack also supports installation of Java. And as soon as we have Java, we have ability to use Hadoop and Spark. Well, and the next point which I want to raise is that Spack is a rapidly growing project. Let's take a look on the raising of the number of packages supported by Spack with each of the releases of the Spack. So at first, when this project was started and we had release 0.10, in 2017, the initial number of packages was around 1,100. Right now, we have more than 5,000 packages within Spack with the version of Spack 0.16.1. So with all of this said and done, let's go to the Spack itself and let's get our hands dirty.